we move now to our Muppet of the month, and this month, as I said earlier, it's been difficult to choose an exact Muppet, in so much as there's been lots of oddities and mishandled stories. And for example, at one point British Museum was potentially a Muppet, or someone involved in that story was a Muppet. But actually this Muppet we've chosen because there's an interesting professional archaeological comment here to be made, and really
also because it's blooming funny.
well, it is okay. It is kind of funny, but also it's we'll come to that. But basically, in terms of Muppetry, there's a spectrum. There's a really egregious, almost unforgivable Muppet. Someone who's a true. Basically, we're using the word Muppet instead of swearing, or at the lighter end of the spectrum, someone can be a Muppet, and it's more of a slap on the wrist kind of Muppet kind of thing. And in this instance, the Muppet is not the person who got something wrong, but rather the response to that mistake. I think there's Muppetry afoot. And it's actually hard to identify who the Muppet is in particular. But anyway, we're talking about the story of an ancient, inverted commas, ancient Aberdeenshire stone circle in a place called, and we are choosing to pronounce this Lekal Cushni. Hopefully that's somewhere. Yes, hopefully that's somewhere around the pronunciation in Aberdeenshire in Scotland, which was found recently not to be ancient. Do you want to have a guess at how old this stone circle was in fact?
I can tell you exactly how old it was because I'm looking at the Press Association report.
I'll tell you what.
No, it was identified by Historic Environment Scotland as being potentially a previously unrecognised recumbent stone circle, until they spoke to the farmer whose land it sits on, who said he built it in the 1990s.
You completely ruined my game there. But yes, built in the 1990s, so it's about 20 odd years old, and that was a bit embarrassing. The thing is, though, this highlights something very important. Okay, in the context of stone circles, we're dealing with stone in a circle. Yeah, and that stone has a
Yep. And I'm sure our audience is following you so far. So
okay,
yeah, come on.
Good. And that stone is very old, and so stone circles, no matter how old they are, they look like stone circles. You don't have newer or older stone that's being used. And actually, when it comes to dating a stone circle, often, for example, in the case of Stonehenge, we know it is as old as it is because people have been able to analyse material found in post holes on the site or underneath stones at certain points in its history. We can see when the stone was laid, and that's how we date those monuments. But if you just go out to a stone circle and look at it, it could have been made yesterday. And in this instance, relatively speaking, it was made yesterday. This was initially celebrated, well, I'm using the word celebrated, it's in the article, celebrated as an authentic recumbent stone circle by an archaeologist called Adam Welfare of Historic Environment Scotland. And the Muppetry element comes in here, because I actually reached out to Historic Environment Scotland for a bit of comment. I wanted to actually record a little interview because I was fascinated by what this means in terms of the process of archaeology, and again how we do know that stone circles were not built 20 years ago. But unfortunately, Adam and others told me that they didn't want to, or that they couldn't, but they were not allowed to comment on this story. And I was referred to the press office, and the press office basically gave me the press release, which is just a case of, we got it wrong, whatever, draw a line underneath it. There was lots of quotes from Neil Ackerman, a historic environment record assistant at Aberdeenshire Council, saying it was disappointing, but he hoped the site would still be appreciated. But I think they let professional embarrassment, I think, get in the way of what could have been a really interesting story about archaeological process, and about why we know that ancient monuments are ancient, and why this one actually in some respects is interesting because it's not. I think that's the Muppetry, and I think I suspect it's probably a PR person somewhere, or someone in a press office has decided, no, let's just put a lid on this. But it's not like this is going to compromise all archaeology. It's not like this is the chink in the armour that sort of, that blows it apart. This is embarrassing, but it also could have been really interesting to talk about, I think. And
certainly, you talk to any archaeologists, and at one stage or another, we talk about our mistakes. I mean, I'm quite happy to talk about. I mean, I've got a mistake, a misinterpretation preserved in perpetuity for at least as long as YouTube's around. And on DVD for a time team I worked on. For the purposes of the program, and so we allowed ourselves to over-egg the interpretation of a bunker we were working on, of an air raid shelter we were working on, because the director wanted to get in the story of the auxiliary stay-behind units in 1940, and so it became a possible secret bunker. But in fact, we found out subsequently that no, it was an air raid shelter, and it was built by the two people who lived in the adjoining houses, and one of them happened to own a building firm.
I see. I see. Okay, so in that case, then it wasn't just, Bob and Ben had decided to make their own air raid shelter. This was constructed by someone who had access to substantial building materials. So it's forgivable.
Possibly on the black market. Yeah.
But it's forgivable, and it's also part of process.
Yeah, exactly. It was over-egged to tell a story. We allowed ourselves to go along with that, and we shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
But hands up.
Yeah.
That's mea culpa.
Well,
and I learned from that. We learned that. I sort of, I don't exactly dine out on the story now, but I always tell it, particularly for anyone getting involved in the media.
Don't let the needs of the program's narrative override or overstate the evidence. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting. Like in this instance, I suppose we should also, again, another interesting talking point would be the fact that we should be thankful that the landowner who put this stuff in place was still around. If this had been 100 years from now, this would have been a massive question mark. There would have been arguments and debates and discussion over the origin of this.
Except that you could argue that maybe somebody would have come along and investigated it archaeologically and discovered that actually there was a 1995 10-pence piece underneath one of the stones.
Yes. Yeah. Or actually, presumably, there must be aerial photography of this site as well from the 40s.
Well, this is the right now you've hit on this, and you talk about professional embarrassment. I am wondering whether the reason they're wanting to sit down to sit on the story is that actually they, for whatever reason, due process didn't work. Because the first thing you do if you find an previously unknown site, you do your map regression and air photo regression, and that should have shown up the fact that this stuff wasn't there before the 1990s.
So desk-based analysis should have shown.
Looking at the photograph of the location, it's in an area. There are farm buildings right of frame on the photograph that I'm looking at. Probably a few hundred meters away. There are dry stone walls, cultivated fields. We're not talking about the back of beyond where nobody goes.
No. Yeah.
So
you think maybe a photo's gone missing, possibly, or I mean, this is just pure speculation. But the question is why it didn't work.
Or maybe staff are overworked and cutting corners. I'm not saying this personally directed at anyone.
No,
I'm saying but official bodies like that are under a lot of pressure these days, and the staff are under huge pressure these days to turn around work.
Yeah,
and it will be very easy to see circumstances. It is very easy to see circumstances where something looks good, it's exciting, and
it looks like a duck. It walks like a duck.
Air raid shelter.
Yeah,
I didn't do the due diligence.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and in that instance, as I say, if it looks and talks and acts like a stone circle, you'd be tempted to say it's a stone circle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I imagine if this had been some sort of weird dry stone structure, maybe some more evidence looking into it would have been more easily required. But again, the problem is that we just don't know, and it's a real shame that we just don't know. I haven't been able to ask Adam about this, and he he sounded lovely on the phone, but he just said, "Sorry, I can't talk about this." And it's a real shame because we're left to infer that something went wrong in terms of process when it could have been much. It could have been. This whole story could have been a public insight into process, archaeological process, that didn't make archaeologists look potentially foolish. And at the moment, unfortunately, the way it's been handled, we're all left to guess. Even the journalist here has left us to go, okay, well, Neil Ackerman says, I hope the stones continue to be used and enjoyed while not ancient. It is still a fantastic location and makes a great feature in the landscape for picnics, etc. But that still reads like damage limitation and please still come and visit Aberdeenshire. You know, it's not also on point, is it?
Absolutely, and I think he's also announcing a new council heritage policy, which I doubt was in their heritage policy before this particular incident, when he says, "We always welcome reports of any new modern reconstructions of ancient monuments, especially those built with the skill of this stone circle and that reference existing monument types."
Ah, okay. Come to Aberdeenshire for your amazing new old archaeology. Yeah. I like it. Okay.
Absolutely, but you know, we're having a laugh at this. You know, when at the same time, not very far away, you've got the Caithness Broch project, which is deliberately trying to use traditional methods to reconstruct a very characteristic Scottish building type from late prehistory, from the Iron Age.
And the conversations that will come out of that, even though it's a new old build, as it were, are going to be really interesting. And again, it's just a shame. It's just a shame that they weren't a little bit more open about this, or I suppose more to the point that clearly someone felt embarrassed and it's been kind of shut down. Nonetheless, that and I'll just reiterate, just because that is the Muppetry here. It's the embarrassment and the response to that. It's not the archaeologist in question.
Absolutely not.
No.
As I say, been there, done that.
Yeah. Got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.